This is Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, a podcast and radio program presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan.
Driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
And now, here he is, your host, Jim Ervin.
Baby, I'm home.
Well, thank you so much, Parker, and hello there. I'm your host, Jim Ervin, and this is Time Signatures. Our guest this time around is truly among the greats in the blues, but you'll also find his work in swing and jazz, earning many awards for his collaborations with the likes of Bob Dylan, Tom Waits, B.B. King, and Jay McShann. This Grammy-nominated artist was a founding member of Roomful of Blues, and he replaced Jimmy Vaughn in the Fabulous Thunderbirds. Now, we could literally spend hours listing his accolades, but let's get the stories straight from the man himself. Ladies and gentlemen, a man the late legendary B.B. King called one of the great players, Duke Robillard. Welcome to Time Signatures, sir. Glad to have you.
Good to be here.
All right. Well, we got lots to talk about, so I want to dive right in. And let's begin by asking you about your start in music. Where did this journey begin for you?
Well, I decided when I was about 6 years old that music was it for me. And
Okay.
I heard Fats Domino because my brother, who was 10 years older than me, brought home all the rock and roll singles. I was born in 1948. So let's see, when I was 6, it would be what year? That would be 54. So I guess maybe it might have been more like Hank Williams being the first thing I heard that I really loved, and records that we had available in our house. And then soon after that, the earliest rock and roll stuff, Little Richard and Fats Domino,
Sure.
Elvis Presley, Buddy Holly was a big one for me. I loved Buddy Holly. Chuck Berry, one of my biggest influences as far as starting out, I mean, I still love him to this day. And, but I'm having a little trouble with my phone here. I got to figure out a way.
So when did you begin taking lessons on the guitar?
I never took lessons. Well, I took one
Oh,
lesson.
you didn't? Okay.
Took one lesson in my life. My brother played guitar. He still does. And I kind of watched him make chords, and he'd have little jam sessions when he was in high school with some of his friends, and I'd watch what the guitar players did, and I'd copy it. And I wasn't allowed to have a guitar because my brothers both owned guitars, but they weren't all that serious about it, and I was just possessed by it, and that's all I wanted to do was get an electric guitar and play rock and roll at that time.
Okay.
When I was like 7, 8 years old. So my mother said, no way, you're not going to do that. And especially after seeing Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Elvis Presley on TV, and Jerry Lee Lewis, all the maniacs of rock and roll. She said, "You're not going to do that. You're going to be an accountant." She picked that for me. As in the old days, parents would kind of try to decide what their kids are going to do, and then without any respect for their interest and stuff. And I couldn't play sports because early on I had a real bad case of asthma, and it affected me. I just, I could barely breathe, and I was allergic to everything in the house. I was allergic to cats, birds, dust, smoke, everything that was in my house. I was allergic to it, it seemed. So I spent some time out of school. And then for some reason, it just after a period, it just went away. I don't know, maybe we got rid of the cat or something. And I guess, so anyway, I didn't play sports. So I, needed to find something to pique my interest. And I was interested in music as soon as I could talk and explain that I loved music. I listened to the radio all the time. I played my brother's guitar when he was out on a date or at football practice or whatever. My uncle gave us a guitar for the house to fool around with, an acoustic K guitar, and I I would take and play that. And because it was acoustic, my mother didn't, you know, complain too much about that, although it
Right.
was very hard to play. And I wanted to play an electric guitar, So.
Okay.
So it just, I knew right away. In fact, I have a song called, I was just thinking of it because it's going to be the title of a book I'm writing called Jumpin' Rock and Rhythm. And it's first line is, when I was 6 years old, I knew what I was going to do. I got a chill down my spine the first time I heard the rhythm and blues, which
Oh,
is
wow.
true. I heard Fats Domino, the intro to Blueberry Hill on the piano. I heard that and it just gave me the goosebumps. I didn't know what came over me. So,
Wow. Well, I have to ask you, considering that you hail from Rhode Island, did you find that to be a challenge? Because, I mean, it's not Chicago. I mean, it seemed like being out east, maybe you had some challenges when you were developing your career and repertoire?
the truth is that my only connection, except for the local musicians, which I heard very infrequently until I
Hmm.
was a teenager and could go hear live music and dances and stuff. But my whole exposure to music was, some of it on television, but mostly the records that my brother brought home.
Okay.
They were all the great hits of rock and roll of the day. All the Fats Domino hits, Ricky Nelson, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, uh, Jerry Lee Lewis, Buddy Holly, just all the great rock and roll songs. And so we had them all on 45. And so I would just listen to that as often as I could get away with it without being told to stop it, because you got to remember I'm just like 6, 7, 8 years old at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I want to fast forward just a little bit here. At the age of 19, you formed Roomful of Blues, which led to your band being credited as having a pivotal role for the resurgence in the jump blues and R&B. Not bad for a guy just starting out, though, hey?
I was actually 17, not
Oh,
19.
all right.
1967. The year I graduated from high school was 66. The next year, I started the first version of Roomful of Blues, which was hornless at the time. We went and played for a year or two that way. And then I discovered B.B. King and T-Bone Walker, and I became totally infatuated with the rhythm and blues sound of, with saxophones. And I got very into it. And I started being a obsessive collector of 78s. And that's how I really learned the music, because at that time, there weren't reissue vinyl. There wasn't reissue vinyl of that music. So you had to go find 45s and 78s. And that meant that I had to go all over New England. I would take buses. I didn't even drive at that time. I would just take buses to cities and find out where the record stores were, look in a phone booth looking up the addresses in the phone books and going there and, sometimes discovering big amounts of great stuff, and I would haul it home. That was most of what my day consisted of, that and practicing guitar.
Busy man for sure. Now, you were with Roomful for several years, but you decided to leave to pursue other interests. How does it feel knowing that that band has survived all these years, man? It has actually stood the test of time, hasn't it?
Oh yes, of course. Yeah. There's been, you know, incredible number of versions of the band, but they
Sure.
still exist and there's still one original member in it.
After all these years, that's pretty impressive. Now,
It
Duke,
is.
in a recent interview, you said the following: My quest in music throughout my whole life has been to find music that was rooted in the blues. There are songs I would go back and find out how it was connected to the blues and what it meant to me, like early jazz, which is very important to me, and it's very connected to the blues. I've talked to other people who have tied jazz to the blues on different levels. How do you connect the jazz sound to the blues as well?
Well, honestly, the first, one of the earliest jazz inventors, creators, and performers was Louis Armstrong.
Hmm.
And he played lots of blues. And so right from the very beginning of from the early 20s and even before there were, I mean, I've got records of songs that are considered blues that were from 1918, and
Wow.
so I and it's really funny because people don't know about this. Like, the blues is many things, and
Yes.
vaudeville, there were a lot of vaudeville performers that were considered blues performers, and they sang about all the blues, typical blues stories, and but they sometimes had more chords, like they were ragtime chord progressions. They were blues with a few more chords in them, and they were, a lot of them were sung by women, and that was a different kind of blues than your Delta blues or your New Orleans style of blues. Was part of
Yes, sir.
that too, actually.
Yep.
But all of these things really were the makeup of the blues, and even Appalachian, white blues. I mean, people like Jimmy Rogers. He's considered the father of country music, but he did a lot of songs that were blues form, blues lyrics, and of course he learned that style from black musicians. So it's all intertwined, but that the actual blues sound, the blues progression, the blues feeling, it all started in the just before the early 20s, and it's all related to each other. To me, I can listen to Son House, I can turn around and listen to a vaudeville singer like Marion Harris from the 1918, or I can
Sure.
listen to Louis Armstrong, I can listen to Muddy Waters, Son House, Howlin' Wolf, everybody, all of them. To me, I listen to it. Even Hank Williams has so many songs that are really blues in his way. But to me, they're all related, they're all important, and they're all part of the real history of blues.
Yes, sir. Now, do you find that you still pursue those connections, and is it still a thrill for you to find those ties between jazz and the blues?
Oh yeah, I still consider my earliest, well, I don't say earliest, but my uh, fascination with the jazz of big band players, like the people who played with Basie and people that played with Duke Ellington, and many of those bands were all great blues players. And I consider my fascination with all of that style of jazz and early blues, and then the electric blues of the 50s. It's all still fascinating, and I'm still finding new people and new, now that everything is on YouTube. I find a lot of things that I never knew existed. So between that, and I still have my record collection, um, and I still have thousands and thousands of 78s. So
Wow.
it's still my greatest form of entertainment is looking for that material, finding that material, and just enjoying it and see how it's all related to each other.
Yes,
It's
sir.
it's just kept my whole life very interesting to me.
You were talking about another Duke here a minute ago, and it brought to me that I should ask you, and I because I don't know the story. Where did the nickname, the moniker Duke come from?
Oh yeah. Well, back in the 60s, um, my name is Michael, so everybody called me Mike. Or
Okay.
I had another nickname that I won't go into because I'd never
Okay.
liked it, and I've been trying to lose it my whole life, but people always find it out. And, but I had a different hairstyle. I had very wavy, almost curly hair, and I let it grow, and I kind of had something that was similar looking to an afro, you know. And when I cut it in the, I guess, late 60s, I cut my hair short and I started just combing it back. And it was a very different look. So my friends that I was playing in a band with a band called Black Cat with John Nicholas and Steve Nardella and friend
Okay.
Christina. Uh, and they
Wait a minute. Wait. Steve Nardella?
Steve Nardella.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's out
He
in
lives in
Michigan.
Michigan now. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been there for
Okay.
years.
Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Well, Steve, myself, John Nicholas, who's now in Texas, been there for decades, but we had a band called Black Cat, and Fran Christina was the drummer, and
Okay.
a bass player named Larry Peduzzi, who was in Roomful for a short while. Anyway, we had a band called Black Cat, and anyway, they were all telling me I needed a new nickname. And one day we were sitting around the kitchen table smoking pot, and they all started saying, "You need a new nickname. We got to give you a new name, Duke. Your look is different now." So, they didn't call me Duke, but then they said, "Man, how about Duke? That sounds good. That fits your new look." So, yeah, that's it. We're gonna call you Duke. And I went, "Okay, it's better than the last name you guys called me." So, so I said, "Okay, you can call me that," and I'm happy.
That's very
That was
cool.
the beginning of it.
Yeah, I appreciate that story, and especially with your ties to Steve Nardella. That's kind of cool. He just lives about an hour from where I'm at right now. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, I actually went to see him last summer, and he had a bunch of Blind Pig records that were still sealed in the vinyl. I mean, just, oh man. And I
Wow.
picked up a bunch from him. Really, really nice collection. And so now they're in my collection.
Great.
But I want to turn the page here, Duke. In 1990, you replaced Jimmy with the Fabulous Thunderbirds. How did that opportunity reveal itself to you?
Well, it was like a very sudden thing because, see, back in the 70s, when the T-Birds came up to New England for the first time, they played Boston. And we went to see them. And they
Okay.
actually, the night before they played their first gig in Boston, they came to a club in Boston that we were playing, Roomful was playing, and they saw us and they couldn't believe what we were doing, and they were so interesting to talk to, that we just said we got to see what these guys are about, because
Sure.
they were playing blues, and they Keith Ferguson had a serape on, and uh, uh, Kim Wilson had a turban on, and Jimmy was dressed in a uh, I forgot what Jimmy had on. I think Kim had an orange jumpsuit and a turban on. So we said we got to go see these guys, and we went up to Boston from Rhode Island the next day to see them, and we were just blown away. So we became instant friends and fans of each other. And that, we played gigs together often. We sat in with each other, even though we were, halfway across the country. We still ran into each other a lot. We played down in Texas. They came up to New England. And so, they often called me to, if they wanted a second guitar for a certain gig, they'd call me and I'd play with them. And so when Jimmy was leaving, he said, "Call Duke." He said, "I'm
I'll be
going to
darned.
leave. Call Duke," and they did. And then, and by that time, and even before that, Christina was the drummer who was the original Roomful of Blues drummer, and Preston Hubbard was in the 70s the bass player in Roomful of Blues. So their band was half of Roomful of Blues alumni, and they were from Rhode Island. So by the time I got there were three of us from Rhode Island.
Wow.
I always make fun of that,
Very cool.
because we said, okay, these Texans, they have to go to Rhode Island to get their musicians, when one leaves. So I mean, that's how close we were musically, and we're impressed by each other that it was that we had such a close knit uh, group of friends that it was an easy job because I loved Jimmy, and I was
Sure.
influenced by the styles he played, and I think we influenced each other really. And that's how it came about. It was just a natural thing.
And how ironic that Jimmy left the band to record Family Style with his brother Stevie, but as history would record, Stevie was lost before the album was even released. How sad.
Yeah, that was just really a tragedy, an incredible tragedy.
Yes,
I get
sir.
to play with Stevie quite a lot. I met him first time I met him was when Roomful went down to Texas in 1978, and that was like, 4 or 5 years before Stevie's first album came out. So I met him back then, and we got to play together. He used to come up to Rhode Island to play with his trio before he had recorded, and play the small clubs that we played. So we really had a pretty tight connection for a long time. The Texas blues musicians from that area, especially the Dallas Austin area.
Indeed. Well, during your career, which spans more than 5 decades, according to what I've put together, you've released several solo albums in addition to those released with Roomful and with the Thunderbirds. But you've also scored some big accolades along the way, and you've had some amazing collaborations as well. Now, I'm going to list a couple of them here. Two-time Grammy nominee for guitar, Groovarama in '07, and
Yeah.
Stomp the Blues tonight in 2010. You're a 4-time recipient of the W.C. Handy Award for Best Guitarist in 2000, 2001, 2, and 3. You received a Keeping the Blues Alive Award for Producer of the Year in 2004. Your collaborations include the aforementioned Dylan, Waits, and McShann, but also Pinetop Perkins and Jimmy Witherspoon. Any great stories on Pinetop or Jimmy? I'd love to hear some.
Oh, just offhand, I can't think of any. But if it comes into my head as we're talking, I'll let you know. But
Sure.
I mean, it was an honor playing with both of them, and also Billy Boy Arnold. I did like 3 albums with him, and
Wow.
and to play with Jay McShann. I mean, he was such a legend and great guy to work with. And you think somebody like him who discovered Charlie Parker, he was so fun, and he really asked my advice and took my advice and took my direction in the recording studio, and we had a good relationship. He was a great guy and just so much fun, and he had funny stories, stories about Charlie Parker and about Charlie, they hitting a chicken on the road when they used to have to, stay at people's houses because they weren't allowed in white hotels.
Sure.
So, they hit a chicken one time, and Charlie made him pull over, and he went and got the chicken and had the woman of the house they were staying at in between gigs cook up the chicken for him, and that's where they started referring to him as Bird, and all the bird things, the bird titles, Yardbird Suite,
Sure.
and all that came about.
Now, how about your work as a producer for albums? You've done work with Joe Louis Walker, the
Oh yeah.
aforementioned Billy Boy Arnold, and Otis Clay. Clearly, you've earned the respect of the biggest and brightest names of the blues, haven't you?
Well, of the old timers, yeah. I don't quite fit into the recent mold of things, but that's okay. I mean, I don't know how much longer I'll be doing it as long as my hands work, but I'm having a few issues with that, but I'm still able to play, luckily. And it's funny when you get old, I've heard George Harrison talk about this. You don't know you're old. Your mind is still like a teenager. You still think the way you
Yes,
did
sir.
when you were young, but it's just your body doesn't react the same way. So I'll do it as long as I can.
Right on. I love the story of your most recent album, 2024's Roll With Me. This album was largely recorded some 20 years ago. I would love to hear the story of how that came together.
Well, that was right at a time where I was writing a lot. I was recording a lot, and my relationship with Holger Peterson at Stony Plain is so good that back then, if I got an idea, like I'd really like to do this album, I'd run it by Holger, the concept, and if Holger liked it, which he almost always did, he would say, okay, can you do it for this budget? And I could, because I recorded in my home. I had a studio in my basement. I don't use it anymore, but I did for quite a few years. And so I could just get the guys together and go down in my basement and record an album. So it was probably my most prolific time. So was doing a blues album of a lot of my own older material, plus, other material of tunes that I loved. And in the middle of that, I got this idea. I started writing songs in kind of a little different vein. And I decided that I wanted to switch over to that and just come back a little later to the blues album I was doing, or the traditional kind of blues album that album is. And what happened is we switched over to another concept, and I finished that album, and we just never got back to doing the rest of this blues album. And I forgot how good it was. And then, I listened to it years later and went, oh my God, this is a really strong album, and we better finish it. And now, by the time I thought of this, Stony Plain was bought by Jeff Kulawak. And, I was told that I would be making my last Stony Plain album. And I had been with them for 30 years,
Oh, wow.
So, I said, I have to finish this blues album. I remember it was good. And then after we started listening to the tapes, we just decided, well, all we need to do is put a couple more tunes in there. And I had basic tracks for a few other songs from other albums that fit right into that mold, traditional blues and R&B. So we just finished it up, and I was hoping for it to be able to be in the category of the blues and even the Grammy nominations, but because it was 20 years old, they said no, it's too old. It has to be like within 5 years. And then
Wow.
right after that, there's a Beatle tune of John Lennon's that Paul and Ringo and George go in and finish up and release it, and it becomes Song of the Year. Now, how is that? How is that okay? But something I did 20 years ago not be okay.
Wow.
And now, of course,
Wow.
you can't argue with something that's the Beatles. You just can't. They were great.
Right.
You can't argue about that. But I had to say that, it wasn't fair that we didn't get to at least be in that category. But it did win another award. One of the other magazines has an award. I can't remember. I'm not good at remembering things. At my age, there's a lot of things, details that it's hard to keep them fresh in my head. But just hitting that age, 77, where things start to get a little fuzzy here and there.
Yeah. All right. I need to pause for 1 second. We're going to talk about your new album.
Yeah.
And I'm going to release this interview the Monday of release week for your album, which is scheduled for the 20th. Okay.
That's right.
So I'm going to refer to your album as being released this Friday. So I don't want you to be thrown off by that. Okay.
Oh, okay. I got you.
All right. All right. Let's go ahead and jump back in here.
Sure.
So Duke, you've got a new album out. It's actually getting ready to be released on this Friday, as a matter of fact, the 20th. It's called Blast Off, and I would love to hear about this. It looks like a great project. Looks like you guys had a lot of fun putting it together.
I really feel that it's one of my best records. We did have fun. We did a wide variety of blues and R&B tunes, but we also did some jazz and R&B tunes. I we wrote a few instrumentals, which we just kind of, the rhythm section, we just kind of came up with it, jamming on the spot, waiting for some of the people to show up. And the Blast Off song, I think I'm really happy with that. I think people are going to really enjoy it. It's just, I think, got a fairly timeless kind of thing to it. And we also recorded a song I wrote back in the very first hornless Roomful of Blues period when I was 17.
Oh,
17
wow.
or 18. I think it was 17 because we used to rehearse at Al Copley's house because he had a baby grand piano there. And we had a friend that would record us with a 4-track tape recorder. And, we'd get it to sound as good as we could. And so I've got all of these recordings that someday may get released. Who knows? That, just really show the beginning of my blues playing. And my singing was my voice wasn't very developed, so I kind of sounded very high and young, But my guitar playing was pretty fully developed. There's things I played then that I can't play now, But that's the way it goes. You lose things and you gain things, and that's the way it is, But anyway, yeah, there was a tune that I wrote from back then that came out really great. We gave it a new arrangement, and it was just really fun. We usually come up with all our arrangements right on the spot in the studio. We work them out as we're making the record rather than spending time rehearsals and trying different things out on the gig. And, I just prefer, there's a good thing about rehearsing a lot and testing stuff out on gigs before you record it. But the spontaneity of coming up with something and having it go down on tape the minute you get it right the first time, I think that's the most special thing in recording. To me, in this kind of music that's got a lot of improvisation to it, when you come up with something on the spot and you're not even sure that you were really completely aware of what you were doing, you were reacting to the other players. That, to me, is the most beautiful thing about recording and about playing improvised music, blues and jazz music. So even if it's not perfect, or sometimes you say later on, gee, I wish we had done that a little slower or a little quicker, or wish we did this. Even though you say that, I think in general, I'm always really happy that it was done on the spot.
Well, I can tell you, I've given the album a cursory listen at least a couple of times through. I'm one of these people that I have to listen 3, 4, 5, 10 times before I really get all of the elements of the album understood in my brain. And I'm looking forward to listening to it again and just enjoying it, because it truly seems to be a fun album all the way across. Now, it also looks like 2026 promises to be off to a good start for you as it relates to touring. Anything big that you haven't released on that front yet?
Not yet. We're still, trying to plan out the year and trying to get involved with festivals worldwide. We're going over to Holland and playing a few shows over there. In May, we're doing the Ospel Blues Festival, and not the Ospel. It's not called that. It's in Ospel, Holland. But I played the very first festival they had.
Oh, wow!
Back in the '80s, and now we're going back. So, what is the name of that festival? God, I'm terrible. I can't think of what the name of it is. But
listen, it happens to me all the time. I get it.
Yeah, well,
Well, Duke, where can we send people to learn more about you, maybe buy some merch or albums, or book you for a gig?
It's all on my website, dukerobillard.com is all you have to go to. And it's got, bio and photographs. It's got, you can buy all my albums there. It's got, stories and all kinds of things.
Sounds good. Well, we'll make sure to put links up.
Me through it.
Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
I said, you could also book me through it. My agent and my information are all on that website. So, if somebody wants me, I get often I get contacted through my website for shows and festivals.
Okay, great. Well, Duke Robillard, it has been a pleasure, man. I wish you much success. Next time you're in Michigan or close by, I'm going to go out of my way to catch up to you. I'd love to see you guys play. And anytime you have a new project to promote or a tour, get in touch with me, and we have a microphone ready for you. How's that sound?
That sounds great. By the way, what is in that area? What's the good place a good club that has blues, or a theater or whatever? Have you got a room out there that we can try to come up to?
We've actually got a few that I'll be glad to share with you.
Oh, great.
And I can do that. I'll send you an email with that information. There's probably within 90 miles of Lansing, there's probably half a dozen. And you've
Right.
played at the Token, haven't you, over in Westland?
No, I haven't played the Token.
Oh, you haven't? Okay. All right.
No?
Well, let me go ahead and put the ribbons on this, and I will be back with you in just a moment, and I'll take care of getting some information to you. How's that?
Sounds good.
All right, very good. Well, before we close this episode, I want to talk to you about the Blues Foundation in Memphis, Tennessee. The Blues Foundation preserves blues heritage, celebrates blues recording and performance, expands worldwide awareness of the blues, and ensures the future of this uniquely American art form. The Blues Foundation is responsible for the International Blues Challenge held each year on Beale Street, the annual Blues Music Awards, and the Blues Hall of Fame. Celebrating 45 years, and they are just getting started. To make a tax-deductible donation, please go to blues.org today, then click on the donation link at the top right and make your donation in any amount. And as always, we thank you for your consideration. And that wraps up this edition of Time Signatures. Once again, my appreciation to Duke Robillard, but also to you, for without you, none of this would be possible. Jim Ervin reminding you, keeping the blues alive is everyone's responsibility, but preserving the history of the blues, one story at a time, is my mission. Until next time, so long, everybody.
This has been Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan. For more information on cabs, visit capitalareablues.org. You can find this episode and past episodes at lccconnect.org. The Time Signatures theme song, Michigan Roads, is used by permission and was written by Root Doctor, featuring Freddie Cunningham.
I'm trying, baby, driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
Until next time, keep on keeping the blues alive.